For the test, so we'll finish up kind of going over some test-based material here. You'll need to basically know the information we just covered from the book and how it's related to various questions you get. Will you get true-false questions on this test? No, you'll get cases, you'll get problems, you'll get situations, and you'll be asked to show your knowledge using big-shot terms like cognitive neuroscience, type token reductionism. See if you can apply what you know to these new situations. How many people have taken these kinds of tests before? Have you guys taken these? What's probably the best thing to do as far as you don't really have to study, because when you study you try to memorize things. Is this a memory-based test? So what would be a good idea to do if you want to try to do well on this thing? Would there be any preparation to be done? I would encourage you, if you could, to just make some good detailed outlines of what you've got here. Know where what is, how to get it, how to access it, and where to look if you're trying to find things. So just go back to the other lectures in this one and kind of structure things the best you can. So, let's see, the agenda going back to the first class. Let's see. Week 2, do we have stuff in the first class here? Week 2. I don't remember. What did we do in the first class here? That's right. We did the experiment with, it was the word frequency effect, correct? So what did we find? Are you going to need to know stuff about the word frequency effect for the test? Probably not so much. That's more on the written up situation here. So, but in the word frequency experiment, we basically went over how people read high frequency words, what? More quickly than low frequency words. Should you understand the idea that we can look at that through a chronometric analysis? Very much the case. Actually, let me change my comment on that. You do need to know about the word frequency effect. You're being asked to write up a results section, but the idea is, because we did go through the history of kind of cognitive psychology and we mapped it to cognitive neuroscience. So the experiment we did, we had an independent variable, we collected data. Did this take care of the problem of introspection? Would you say that was an experiment? Was that an actual experiment? It was. Why was that an experiment?
Because there were variables being manipulated.
So were there multiple variables being manipulated?
You had an independent variable with 2 levels.
So there was one IV, it was kind of the word frequency, high or low, and did I have a DV? Yes, I did. It was the response time, so you could be given a question on, is this an experiment? And we collected the results from that, and that's what you're going to write up. You won't need to be doing any statistical things for the test here. How does it tie back to this chronometric idea? Why are low frequency words slower? Did we talk about the steps in processing? It takes you longer to access low frequency words from your memory system. So we can use time output as an indicator. So once again, you might be given a situation like that with adding numbers, with words, and see if you can map it back to that. But the actual knowing what we did for the experiment and the write-up, you won't be asked to do things on that. The stages going on there, you could be asked to map it to, I could give you a situation of what are the steps you need to do related to that. So that was kind of the first class we had that. I'm trying to remember the second class. What did we do for the second class there? I don't think I had online access yet. What did we do for class 2 on week 1?
We went over the history of cognitive neuroscience.
There we go. So was our experiment, what we did in class, was that a cognitive neuroscience experiment? Was that a cognitive neuroscience experiment? You could be given a situation on the test and asked, is this a cognitive neuroscience? Was that a cognitive neuroscience experiment? Bella, what would you say?
Yeah, I guess.
Why would you say yes?
Because it was concerning your response time.
So it was your response time. So it was definitely cognitive, right? We're looking at cognitive activity. But would anybody else have a differing opinion about cognitive neuroscience? Was there anything neuroscientific about what we did in the experiment? Well, yeah, but that was just kind of the cognitive stuff. Was I actually looking at anything neurological there? No, that was a cog experiment. Now, if I'd actually put recording electrodes into your brain while that was going on and recorded P300 waves, would that be cognitive neuroscience?
Yes.
Yeah, so you could be given something on the test that says, okay, take this, what would you call this, why? If you had to change it to be cognitive neuroscience, and you can get partial credit on these things, those are the types of things I'm looking for there. What else did we... So we went through the history of cognitive psychology and cognitive neuroscience in that particular class. Did we do anything else in that second class? Did we tie it to the McClellan and Rummelhart model, or did we do that just on Tuesday of this week? I think that was more on Tuesday of this week, so we bring that up here. So yeah, we talked about the mind-body situation, which we've covered today, Descartes, type and token reductionism, the three movements, or psychology as a science, introspection, Wundt. What was the big problem with introspection?
It was subjective.
It was very subjective. They wanted to study mental phenomenon and perceptual phenomena. Very subjective. It went into behaviorism. Was that more scientific? Got a lot of stimulus, response, observable behavior. Let's measure it. Let's collect data. Much more scientific. But that didn't answer some important questions. Events leading to cognitive psychology. We had the Skinner book. Skinner basically explained all language behavior by talking about what?
Conditioning.
Conditioning and nature or nurture? Nurture. Everything for behaviorism is nurture. Chomsky critiqued that by saying, no, there has to be something innate here as well. Language acquisition device probably going on. World War II, we had trouble keeping their attention. So that was difficult to do. And so we had to figure out ways to cope with attention. And then computers. Thinking of computers, what are the three parts generally of a computer? Input, central processing, and output. And we started thinking of the human mind in the same way. And the assumptions in cognitive psychology, in behaviorism, we can be very passive. The environment can do everything. We can think of attention as something you can focus on or not focus on. You have free will. We assume that cognitive psychology is lawful. Do we have actually any evidence of that from that first experiment? What was that first experiment called? The one we ran on the first day of class? What was that experiment?
Word frequency effect.
So could you use the word frequency effect? This is the kind of test questions you might get. Could you use the word frequency effect to argue that assumption number 2, that cognitive psychology follows laws and can be measured? Does the word frequency effect support that? Madison, what do you think?
I think it does.
How so?
And that we were using time to measure how fast we process the words.
So we are using the chronometric analysis, but generally, if you give everybody a high frequency or low frequency words, even me, you're going to find this. So there are laws governing cognitive behavior. If you gave some people high frequency words and they were slower than low frequency, So we have to assume there are laws governing cognitive processes, and we can measure them. So that experiment actually validates that. And then the chronometric analysis, we use reaction time to measure these things. How does that help answer the behaviorism problem with cognitive psychology? How does the chronometric analysis help with that situation? What was behaviorism's main critique of... Go ahead.
Physically, see mental processes, so they weren't there for you to study.
So in behaviorism, they said if we can't see it, we shouldn't be studying it. Stimulus and response. How does the chronometric solve that?
It gives a mental process that you can physically study.
Yeah, you're looking at reaction time. I can make assumptions about memorial processes of high and low frequency words on the basis of that. So on the test, you might get a different situation. You might be asked, does this make sense with theory? So you'll be given probably 4 or 5 test questions. And once again, the idea is you give your answer as one part of it, but it's really not the answer that matters so much. What's going to matter more? Say again?
The process that it took to get to the answer.
Yeah, I'm going to look for rationales here and look for, there's a one, if you say something like there's a one-to-one relationship, you'll get some points for that, but the better word to say would be type reductionism. So I'm looking for big shot words, or no, that doesn't match with theory, we should have gotten this result, and that type of thing. Does that make sense for people? So that'll be on Tuesday. Do you guys have any other comments or questions in regards to the test? Go ahead.
Will it be timed?
I'll post it early on Tuesday morning, and you'll basically have, did we say 6 p.m.?
So the tests online, though, the professor can make it so that you can only do it within, once you start, you have an hour to finish.
No, it won't be that way for me. If you have places to go and things to do, what you may want to do is simply keep a copy of that for yourself. I will have a 6 p.m. deadline, but if you are busy and doing things, you can even send me an email with your draft. I don't care if you go to it and come back. The only rule I have is what?
Don't work on it with each other.
Yeah, don't talk to anybody else in the class. If you have questions for me, sometimes questions can appear a little ambiguous. There's nothing wrong with asking me an administrative question. I might say just, if you're thinking I'm asking for A or B, just kind of give me both lines of thought there. Or just give it your best shot, just have a rationale. Am I asking for this or that? Because sometimes the questions can be kind of open-ended, because I don't want to say, here's what I'm looking for you to say. But just give it your best interpretation. And if you have 2 interpretations, write them out, because that also works into more partial credit. And if you have one of them that's exactly right, then that'll probably be okay. But if you have simple administrative questions, but I won't really look at grading the answers. So we'll say 6 p.m. on Tuesday for the test deadline, and then we'll come in for the next unit, which I think, is going to be on language. So we'll talk about that in the next unit. Any other comments or questions from you guys? Okay.
It is free response, essay questions.
Yeah, it'll be that way, and I'll basically post it as a Word file, and it'll be a test, but it'll be an assignment. So download the questions and have a Word file, start typing things up, save it as you're doing it, send it to yourself. You can take, if you want to do it all in one block of time. Usually people report it taking about an hour or 2. If you need more time than that, if you want to write more, there's nothing wrong with writing more. But by 6 p.m., and if you need more time from that, just send me an email and I'll let you know. We'll have no face-to-face class on Tuesday, and then I will see you on Thursday. So thank you for your attention, and that'll do it for the day.